We've come to the book of Daniel now. So we had an introduction in Habakkuk, and the book of Daniel is written by Daniel. There was a lot of contention about that because there are so many prophecies that literally came to pass that there were people that said Daniel was written after the time of Daniel. But I think there's become some new evidence, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, that shows now people believed in this even in the first century. So they had these scrolls written, and Daniel was a man greatly beloved, just like John, who wrote the book of Revelation, was greatly beloved. So people do Bible prophecy, get a big head. They think, well, these people are greatly beloved. God must love me if I'm able to understand this. So when you get a big head, you lose the word of God. So humble yourselves. You that want to learn prophecy, and I hope you do. I'm very interested in it. Been interested. Hal Lindsey, way back the late great Planet Earth, got me interested. Listen to J. Vernon McGee. These are great men of the Bible, but when it came to Bible prophecy, they were all in the pre-trib camp. And when I tried to make that fit, so we want to be like Bereans and test it out for ourselves and make sure that what they're saying is true, just like you should be doing with me. So I couldn't make that fit. So I'm going to give you my theory. So they had their theories. The book of Revelation, anybody that tells you they know exactly what it means, 2,000 years after it was written, we're still trying to decide. And Daniel was actually shut up and sealed, but a lot of it has been open to us. So we're going to go through the book of Daniel now, starting in chapter 1, verse 1. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, and part of the vessels of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the messenger of the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and tongue of the Chaldeans. And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end of thereof they might stand before the king. The Chaldeans are going out and they're conquering not only Israel, but all kinds of different people, and they're giving their gods credit for all this power that they have. That's kind of like it was back in the old days. So my God's stronger than your God, and that's why we won. Well, of course, that's not what's going on here. God is King of Kings, Lord of Lords. He's the God of gods. God's gonna eventually destroy Babylon because of this thing that they've got in their head about their own gods. We have the master of the eunuchs getting captives, and so they're picking out the best and the brightest and the good-looking ones. So that's kind of it's like a beauty contest here, as well as an educational thing. And they want to assimilate these people into their own land and their own ways of doing things. So it's kind of interesting that later on in the book of Esther, well, we got the queen becomes queen. Queen Esther becomes queen because of her good looks. God is using that. That's a couple hundred years later, but the genetics are passed down, and all these good looking people, well, that set up the queen to become queen. If she was ugly, the king wouldn't have taken her. So just a little side note there, but I found that interesting that he's taken all the good looking people. So now the king is giving them good food, and he wants them to learn the ways of Babylon for 3 years because he wants to know who he can use. So he took these captives, but he wants to make them to be his people and useful for himself as he rules. So verses 6 through 8. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. These kids, they're teenagers. They're taken out of their own land. Now they're in Babylon. And they're learning the ways of Babylon. The first thing they do is they're given new names which reflect the gods of Babylon. And they can't really do anything about that. But we're going to see that they don't have to eat the food. And so God's going to perform his first miracle. So we'll read 9 through 16. Now God had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your meat and your drink. For why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me endanger my head to the king. Then said Daniel to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenance be looked upon before thee, and the countenance of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So he consented to them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat of the portion of the king's meat. Thus Melsar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink, and gave them pulse. So we got a miracle in Daniel. So first of all, he finds favor with the people who want to feed him, because if they disobey the king will kill them. He says, well, test us for 10 days. So there's a lot of testing in the Bible. 10 days you'll be tested. And so after the 10 days, eating pulse, they're different. Is that grain? Is that vegetables? There's different theories. But they're just giving us stuff that the Babylonians didn't consider good food. And they ate that, and they got fatter than the rest of the people, so they were allowed to eat that. And God's with these people, these 4 young Hebrews. Now, in verse 17 through 20, as for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now, at the end of the days that the king had said that he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them, and among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And therefore they stood before the king. In all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in his realm. These 4 Hebrews, after 3 years, okay, what do you know? What have you learned? So the king is quizzing them, and they're just way above everybody else in the kingdom. So they get to sit with the king then. They're close advisors of the king. In verse 21, the last verse in the chapter, Daniel continued even into the 1st year of King Cyrus. So Daniel is in this captivity for the 70 years of the Babylonian control, and even into the time of the Medes and the Persians. Next, we'll go into chapter 2 of the book of Daniel.